Hi everybody, it is Dawn, Twin Hearts Ablaze. Welcome. I hope that everybody is doing wonderful and staying strong. This video is going to be a little bit of just me sharing a few pieces and threads that I've been called to share with you all, but I'm not exactly sure of how they're all going to connect right now. So what I may do is put a timestamp below of certain topics that I discuss in this video. So the main reason for me making this video is about tomorrow, 7/7/2017, which has been identified by many out there as the Sirian gateway. That feels very resonant for me, and I will link at the end of this video to my earlier video, which I talked a little bit about that. I don't think I called it the Sirian gateway, but I was actually thinking that at the time, and that feels, that's out there, and I think that that's probably what this is all about. So I have increasingly been given a series of images that I just want to share with you all to see if that connects for you. I do feel like they are these images or sounds in some cases that I've been given are sort of touchstones that will support us as we move through the 7/7 gateway. And then I'm also going to touch in this video on the 8/8 Lion's Gate and the 9/9 portal. So those three are linked in and of themselves. They're three separate events, three separate opportunities for expansion, if you will. But for me, they are very, very linked. I'm not exactly sure, how, but I wanted to start off by saying that. So, and the theme, I think, for all of these three gateways, if you will, is about, it's about the material and the spiritual, the unification process, moving through this series of gateways in order to further come into the wholeness of who we are as eternal beings of light and life and love. So let me just say a little bit about, many of us have noticed timeline jumps and other opportunities where we found ourselves either literally, in a split second, really just I was here and now I'm here, or circling back to various things, and many of us have talked about or experienced or witnessed this sort of splitting of the timelines as well. Some people call that the bifurcation of reality, whatever that means. But I'm not very scientific, and you guys will know that, I'm sure. But to simplify this, all of it is really about making an active choice to access the highest vibrational frequency of who we are here and now, and to ground that here and now. So it is bringing heaven to earth, that general concept. And the way that we are doing that, we are being supported in doing that, is by passing through these three portals, gateways, this process that we're moving through. Now, that can often sound a little far-fetched, daunting, intimidating, confusing, various other things. So really, what's important to remember here is it's just an opportunity to choose the best of ourselves from within the portal of the now, and the now is always your next opportunity window. The now is when everything unfolds. The now is where you find your future fulfillment by being fully present. That's one of the 7 pillars that I'm sharing in the Sacred Partnership video series, which is available free on the website or on the YouTube channel if you look for the playlist. So I know I'm all over the place already. One of the things that I've been given repeatedly in the last week is this sound. I normally don't receive messages by sound. Occasionally I will have a little bit of telepathy, but this is more like literal sounds of whales singing. And I was able to connect that to the Sirian gateway and the blue star, and also circling back to something that I experienced when I went on my Heartland tour in May of 2014. I was shown some things in the sky at that time that were, whale-shaped clouds, and I have a whole chapter in that book, Journey to the Heartland, about ancient wisdom, whales, clouds, the return of all of that. But again, just these are various images and signals and signs. But again, what I've been hearing in dream time and also just, in everyday moments recently is this, singing of whales. It's come up again and again and again. For example, the image of whales and connected to light, life, love, and this particular gateway that we're entering into. My son was on a brief vacation and saw a beached whale, for example. A friend sent me a note in which she referenced whales. There was an article I ran across about whales and sonar communication, and so it's been huge in my awareness. It also reminds me of a drawing I did called Crystal City Rising, which a couple of years ago I was really irritated with just people in my world that I felt weren't getting it, and so I posted as my Facebook cover photo this quick sketch I did of the Crystal City Rising, and I said, this is where I'm from. And not from a very loving space, but this is indeed what is happening right now, and I feel all of us belong to this Crystal City Rising. And this song of the whales thing that's been coming to me again and again feels very very much a reclamation of that ancient wisdom and a call into where we are headed on our ascension journey, both individually and on the twin flame path with sacred union with our beloved, and also collectively as humanity. There is a real convergence, and as who was that said, all that rises must converge? Flannery O'Connor. Yes, Flannery O'Connor. I'm sorry, I'm a little spacey today, and I've tried to, ground all of this, and it's been a challenge, so I hope that you guys stay with me for a little bit. So the whales in the clouds that I saw 3 years ago, right up to this week with all this whale song, and it was as if when I was hearing some of this and getting all this whale symbology, at the same time I was thinking or guided very much to within me to contemplate the idea of living waters and the idea of resolution or resolution. About the solution. What is the solution? The solution lies in the dissolution. Again, which brings me back to the image of water. So there's a lot of watery imagery. It's freedom, it's future, it's movement, it's a return, and it is an opening up of new communication abilities, I want to say, and that communication is two-way. It is giving, receiving, and not just it's one-to-one communication, it's one-to-many communication, it's many-to-one communication, it's physical to spiritual, spiritual to physical. It's all of it. It's like expanded multidimensionality. And which is another thing that these series of portals to me is all about. 778899. It's about forever we've been trying to get out of the polarity, right? And this kind of timeless, ageless dynamic of us versus them. And again, back to resolution. The solution is in the dissolution. It's in the dissolving of the ego and the allowing ourselves to receive the Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit, capital S, to receive the living waters. I'm going to circle back to that in a moment, the living waters. So the three portals, the 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9. Wow, okay, so there's all these different levels that I'm seeing with regard to these three portals, also three pyramids, those three dates, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 7, 7. And if you add the numerology, this is not my area either, but if you add that, that is a 15 or a 6. If you 8, 8, it's a 17 or an 8 day. 9, 9 is a 19 or a 10, which reduces to 1. In my view of this, these three dates, these three are linked. I don't know if they're sequential, if they're different, associated with different star systems or purposes. I don't really know. I don't know that that's really the critical part right now. But what is really important and what I've been guided to share with you is that this idea of the whale song and being fully connected and grounded as we allow ourselves to see things differently, a whole new way of seeing. That's these three portals, all about a whole new way of seeing ourselves, whole new way of seeing humanity, whole new way of seeing our relationship to God, Spirit. And as I said that, I've got like 10 cardinals that are like right outside my window, so love that. Cardinals often represent the gathering of our team support from beyond, so that's very beautiful. Okay, one of the things that, this idea of water, the watery, couple of images. One I want to read to you from the Bhagavad Gita. So I've had this book and I've wanted to read it. This is like Hindu scriptural passages. And I was guided, I haven't read this yet, but I was guided to this section that is talking about the real picture of the material world. And it says, the material world is described as a tree whose roots are upwards and branches below. Okay, get that picture. The roots are upwards and the branches below. It's material world. We have experience of a tree whose roots are upward. If one stands on the bank of a river or any reservoir of water, he can see that the trees reflected in the water are upside down. The branches go downward and the roots go upward. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The material world, physical material world, is but a shadow of reality. In the shadow, there is no reality or substantiality, but from the shadow, we can understand that there are substance and reality. In the desert, there is no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such a thing as water. In the material world, there is no water, there is no happiness, but the real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world, which we see through this shadow aspect, through the reflection of our physical world, okay? The reflection of the spiritual world in the physical world, as above, so below. So there's lots more here that I was drawn to, but I'm just going to leave it at that, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about this living water imagery and going back to these three portals and three pyramids. Each portal is like a pyramid. Think of how the dimensionality of a pyramid and the surface here, pyramid on top with the three sides and below, okay? Each one of these portals is like one of the pyramids and it's reflected. And that is also, there's something there about like each one's like the Star of David, and they kind of fit together and then they're rising at the same time. And there's this whole whale watery aspect. So the three, let me just stick with the three though, because there's I've shown all of these significances or meanings with these three and how it's expanded. It's like 3 to the third, 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. This is where I get really lost in it. But what I was shown is a couple of different things. One was I was taken back to my experience September 9th last year, 2016. I was guided to go to Ireland to a specific space, to a forest and go in that forest and do what was described to me as a reconciliation of light, which sounded like what to me, but I went and I did it, and it was blue light and golden light, and what I experienced there was amazing. I did write a book, I'll link to that below, in terms of photographs that I had taken, some that day and then some in that same place at different points of time or in nearby regions. And this whole idea of the golden light and blue light was sort of a mystery to me at the time, although I described it in a couple videos because it was very distinct energies that were being brought together and like reconciled, the reconciliation. This idea of reconciliation is big in these three portals as well. So that experience that I had September 9th, 9/9/2016, I believe is really connected to these three gateways. And this blue light, golden light thing is super important. Sirius is known as the blue star. And the Hopis that talked about the return of the blue star, and the Sirian star beings are known, as bringing love and support to humanity, and they are on a higher evolutionary trajectory or have advanced further than Earth. But this idea of the blessing pouring out like water, again, living water, onto Earth at this time, at this particular 7/7 portal, is also something that I was shown. Let's see, I know this is coming out just like all over the place. I apologize for that. But it was important just to get the video out because it's late Thursday night here, so I just wanted to get it out for you. So back to the three portals, 7/7, 8/8, 9/9, and I was shown three eras of humanity. This part's cool. So the first was Egyptian. It was all Isis and Osiris. It was golden light. It was that first pyramid. The second, the left pyramid. The right-hand pyramid was Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and there was blue light energy that was associated with that, and the time when Jesus was on earth, and that those early years after the resurrection. And so this was associated with the blue light. And then the central structure was the twins, the divine masculine and divine feminine, walking through that corridor. And there was an idea of the two suns, and something about the central sun there with the corridor. But this third central was like we were being supported by the golden and the blue lights, and these great eras of humanity. And then around each of the pyramids on the left and the right, so the Isis, Osiris, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, were all of these like 12, I'm not sure if they were stars or pyramids, but there were 12 around each. And that was reflected below. And at one of the times when I was shown a lot of this was I was hearing the whale song again. So the second thing I was shown was about the time of Jesus, and this has to do with my own recollections, and that the pyramids themselves represented individuals that were merging together. On the one left side was John the Baptist, the figure of John the Baptist, the voice crying out in the wilderness, preparing the way of the Lord. In the right-hand side was the Apostle Paul, and who preached faith in Jesus Christ and Christ resurrected and the resurrection. And so he spread, through his missionary journeys and his writings, spread the teachings of Jesus. So there was these two, and then the central pyramid here was unconditional love, which Jesus, as he walked in the way of wholeness and lived his life in the way that he did, opened up the way for, in my way of seeing that, and so that we could all return to God and allow ourselves to receive the living waters of the Spirit. Okay, there were several other things. I'm just going to leave it at that, though. These three pyramid things, though, again, I believe that pertains now to all three of the portals, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9. And I think it's actually a lot more sophisticated than I'm able to articulate right here. I may come back and do a separate video, probably toward that Lion's Gate 8, 8, which have a lot of images floating around with regard to that that I haven't pieced together yet. And like, clearly I haven't pieced this together either, but it just felt important to make it before tomorrow and to share it with you. Okay, the water of life. I want to talk a little bit about this. This has to do with Sirius, the blue star. It has to do with Yeshua, Jesus. It has to do with throughout the time sweep of humanity to date, the access of the gift of the Spirit and our ability to understand what that is and to receive it. Another thing about the star Sirius for the 7-7 gateway is that, when the wise men came, the way they found their way to the promised one, to Jesus, the babe, was by following the star in the east, and many believe that was Sirius, the bright and morning star. And what did Jesus call himself in Revelation? The bright and morning star. I am the bright and morning star. That's from Revelation 22:16. And in Revelation 22, I've talked about this in other videos, but in Revelation 22, the angel showed him the river of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. The Lamb is Jesus. And then later in that chapter 22 of Revelation, Jesus says, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to you to give this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright and morning star. I was shown something back to that reflection image that was in the Bhagavad Gita. I was shown something with regard to this root and offspring of David that Jesus is, that we are the root and offspring as well. We are the root and offspring of humanity, with Jesus as the forerunner in terms of making this journey that we are making. In the end of chapter 22 of Revelation, as I've shared before, it ends by saying, the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let the one who hears come, say, come. Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life. So back to the idea of the water of life, the living water. The Gospel of John talks about living water and uses that metaphor quite a few times. In chapter 4, where the woman at the well, Jesus gives the woman the living water and says that the water he is giving will become in us a well of water springing up into eternal life. So this living water will become within us a well of water springing into eternal life. And he says, everyone who drinks this water will never be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So this link is made to the water, the living water, being the Spirit. And in the end of that chapter, chapter 4 of John, Jesus says, yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship the Spirit and in truth, in the Spirit and in truth. In spirit and in truth. This is very much receiving these living waters and this idea of being in spirit and in truth, that alignment happens as we progress through these openings, these opportunities for all of humanity, by the way. Those of us who have chosen the path of sacred partnership in this particular expression of our ascension journey, many of us are going first through these portals and assisting humanity in making this series of transitions that I'm shown different time the way this will unfold, but definitely the next 3 years, 2017, 18, 19, 20, and then right straight through to 2024 will be 2022, 2024, both very significant years. So also back to living water. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. And so this water of life, the living waters, is the Spirit. I'm also reminded of the wedding at Cana, John chapter 2, where Jesus turns the water into wine. In the book of John, there are signs and wonders, and the miracles of Jesus and these signs and wonders are often about the physical being transformed somehow. And while there is an aspect of that happening now for us, there's almost the reverse. So back to this reflection energy, there is the bringing heaven to earth, the seeing that as above, so below. And the way that way is opening up is it's time for us to worship and to be, to exist in spirit and in truth, to see, as the passage I read from the Bhagavad Gita says, to see the reflection and consider the material and the physical. When I think about the living waters, there's another image that's been really strong with me lately, along with the whale song. I think about Jeremiah as well in the Old Testament, and Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 11 through 13. But my people have exchanged their glorious God for worthless idols. Be appalled at this, you heavens, and shudder with great horror, declares the Lord. My people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. And then later in that same book by the prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 17, verse 13 says, Lord, you are the hope of Israel. All who forsake you will be put to shame. Those who turn away from you will be written in the dust, because they have forsaken the Lord, the spring of living water. So this is connecting God or spirit with a spring of living water. Again, eternal life. And this is, in the Old Testament, this is calling those who had forsaken the eternal God, the source of that wellspring Jesus described in the book of John, that those people will be held to account. And these portals, these series of gateways, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, are just enhanced opportunities for us to come clean before God and to turn away from any times when we have dug our own cisterns, right? And that cannot hold water, and pretended, in other words, that we could create this world of our own doing. That's not to suggest that we have not been given the ability to create this reality, because we have, but we forgot something along the way, and that is the source of the wellspring that is that living water that makes it all possible. It is life itself. And so these three portals really feel for me very much about the rising up into the highest, choosing the highest and best for ourselves, shedding all that does not belong, and releasing our belief that we are not in need of the spiritual. In other words, it is the opportunity for us to return to the union of the two, the physical, the spiritual, and to allow our bodies, these vessels that we are in, to be filled with living water. And as that happens, I'm brought back to the beginning verses of chapter 22 of Revelation once more, which, again, is that river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. So I know this has been all over the place. I just really felt like I was being asked to share some of these images with you, and I wish that I had, something to offer in terms of a great practice, or something that you could do. The whale song, I will say, feels very significant, and so I would encourage you to Google whale song and listen to a little bit of that singing, because it feels very significant. And to as much as you are able to purify your own vessel, heart, mind, body, soul, and to prepare to receive, and then to share the living waters that you receive with others. And this is it is a time of abundant blessing, and I do feel called to do some of my soul shower blessings. So if that is something that is of interest to you, I'll leave the link below, and you can contact me. I would be happy to do one of those for you. And I may, we'll see. I feel like the Lion's Gate 8/8 is significant for me to share something around that time. I'm just not entirely sure yet about all of that. One other thing I wanted to share with you, I don't know if other people have been experiencing this, but I have had quite a time in terms of visitation from my grandparents and others who have passed, who I wasn't necessarily close to, and each one of them has brought something unique, and I am seeing how my ancestral lineage and my family prepared me and gave me so much and made me who I am, and combined so many different streams of that ancient wisdom that we are all gaining access to and being blessed with knowing. So hang on for the ride. I think, if there is some shockwaves in terms of the world, just know that you are receiving those living waters, and you are blessed in this time abundantly. We are being blessed with life, and the life more abundant beyond our wildest imaginings.